Hey guys, what's up and welcome back. It's me, Eddie, with another episode of Eddie G's Comic Culture, sponsored by Black Apparel. Sending a special shout out to those boys over there, thanking them once again for all the wonderful work that they've done on the show and the contributions that they've made. They've got some good stuff on their website at www.blackapparelblk.com. Some awesome merchandise for you guys to check out. I'm also wanting to send a special shout out to my friends on Instagram. First and foremost, the one who's been riding with me from the very beginning, the Strictly Comedy Vault. The man's got some good stuff on his page. He's an up and coming writer. I've been loving what I've been seeing so far this past week regarding the Funko Pop figures. Keep it up. And also a good friend, Blu-ray Dan, who I've been following for quite some time on Instagram. He's also got an excellent YouTube channel filled with wonderful content regarding reviews on Blu-rays, old and new. Man's got some insightful reviews. Make sure you check him out. And back again, here we are with another nostalgia trip. Of course, I wanted to talk once again about the 90s, and I know you guys have seen the episode. It's coming up pretty soon. If you haven't, check it out. I want to talk about one of the famous movies of the 90s that I had from my childhood growing up, and immediately I'm going to dive right into it. It's the 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film. And boy, what a time. I gotta tell you, man, it was a hell of a time to be alive. The year before that, we just had the first Batman live action film with Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson, and riding hot off the tails with that was this. And this was a childhood dream, considering how much all of us, people in my age bracket, from my generation, and those who have shortly after grew up watching the cartoon, it was one hell of a thing to see. Um, it's brought to life obviously through Jim Henson's Puppet Workshop. They did some incredible work with those turtles. I'm going to tell you, those costumes were absolutely unbelievable, and the animatronics that were behind it were just absolutely amazing. Mind blowing to be quite honest, as far as that's concerned. And I got to tell you, when I first saw the movie, I really didn't expect to see it the opening weekend. Um, I'll never forget that. I was at school, and I was coming out. Me and at that time, my I think I was in the third grade. My older brother was picking me up, and of course I was walking outside the doors, and I was actually mulling over earlier on the day, how am I actually going to see this movie? Because if I remember correctly, I don't think my brother was a really big fan of them. He liked them. I think there was a guilty pleasure, of course, but he always put a front that he didn't like them. But nevertheless, um, that Friday I was walking out of school, and I'll never forget that he was waiting outside and told me that he had a surprise. And my father was there in the car waiting. We had a 1986 Chevy Nova, and rather than going home, me and my sister found ourselves being driven to the movie theater. And when we get outside, we knew what was happening. We already knew. We were excited through the roof to see this movie because it was a big deal. It was a definite big deal for us back then. And it's a great movie. It starts off with, you know, it starts off in New York City. Mind you, it was a wonderful, hellish landscape at 1990. It was a crime-infested hellhole, to be quite honest. And if you were in one of those unlucky neighborhoods, you really had to keep your eyes open. It's one of those make sure you're constantly looking over the shoulder kind of deals with that time period. The crime was very high at that time in New York City for some reason. God knows why. Uh, but nevertheless, getting into the movie, it starts off with obviously the four turtles um, lurking in the night. Apparently, they're causing, they're helping, citizens who are getting caught in the wrong at the wrong end of a bad deal. Opening up with April O'Neil, one of them. She's almost getting mugged outside of a TV studio, and by the Foot Clan, of course. And of course, once it looks like it's getting real thick. At that moment, so, it's about to go down. It looks like at that point, you see one of Raphael's size hitting one of the lights, and all of a sudden you just hear, and it's pitch black, mind you. At that point, the screen goes pitch black, and you hear all kinds of ruckus going on between the boys coming out from the sewers and handling business. And then before you know it, everybody's tied up, and April's fine, and then all of a sudden the cops show up, and of course, Raphael's doing a detail from the sewers. He's peeking through, and you see, he sees one of his sides that he left outside. He forgot to pick up, which was kind of crazy that he actually let that go like that, but it is what it is. And he's about to go for it until April O'Neil sees it and then takes it herself and puts it in her purse. And then at that point, he just, whispers, "Damn," closes the manhole cover, and then boom, the movie starts. The magic begins. The camera starts panning throughout all of the sewers, and you hear them talking in the background about how they kicked ass, and they really made it happen. And then finally, as the music is building up, and we still haven't seen them yet, we notice the shadows in the background, and one of them jumps, and obviously it's Leonardo. But before you actually see Leonardo, awesomely enough, the title for the movie appears first. And then once that goes, then you see Leonardo leaping onto the screen, followed by Donatello and Michael and Ralph, of course. And it's such an awesome feeling to see that, because it takes us back. It's definitely a product of its time, honestly. And the guys end up going back into their, they go back into their lair, and they're all happy that they made that they made the splash, that they made it and actually help out April O'Neil. But of course, Ralph is always pissed, and he stays pissed, mind you, no matter what. No matter what movie it's in, he's always a grump, he's always a grouch, which I always resonated. I don't know, for some reason I always sympathized with Raphael. Maybe I guess we just had issues when it came to getting upset at certain things, but nevertheless. He loses his sigh, and of course Splinter does his best to try to calm him down, but it really does not much. It doesn't do much anyways. So the guys are getting ready to order their pizza, of course, and then Raph ends up going out to the movies by himself. He wants to blow off some steam, and there's so many throwbacks into this movie that it's unbelievable. But the fact that for instance, the Domino's pizza. Back then, there was a thing that if the pizza ended up being 30 minutes late, if the pizza was late by half an hour at least from the estimated delivery time, the pizza was free. Now, it sounded like a pretty cool idea. Doesn't, it makes a lot of sense. However, in a city as big as New York, you're bound to run into quite a few shysters, and there was a lot of shysters who played it off. I mean, there were guys that were just people. There were people that were purposely ordering pizza from all the way at the other end of town, from one borough that's like, from all the, you know what I'm saying? Like, you could be living in Flushing, Queens, and then just order something from like the Pizza Hut in Jamaica, and for some reason they'll actually deliver all the way from out there, and you would get like a discounted pizza because it didn't make it to the estimated time. Didn't make the delivery at the estimated time of arrival. There you have it, a free pizza right then and there. It might be a little cold, but for the most part, you didn't pay anything out of the pocket, which was pretty awesome. They ended up having to shut that down, obviously, because of the obvious reasons. People were going out of their way to scheme the company out of free pizzas, just like that, and it was pretty nuts. And so, that's where you see Michelangelo talking to Donatello at the end of at the beginning of the movie, down at the sewers. Wise man saying, never pay full price for a late pizza. And it was pretty nuts. And actually, the guy that played the guy who was actually the Domino's delivery guy in that scene was actually, I think he was Michelangelo. He was actually the actor who played Michelangelo in the movie. The guy in the suit, mind you, not the voice actor, of course. But it was still pretty crazy. It was awesome at the same time, though. And you're starting to see like the Foot Clan develop underground as they started to round about a bunch of young kids, young teenagers, lost teenagers, obviously. I guess those who were considered delinquents at the time, and they would round them up into the clan and use them, and of course, do their Jedi mind tricks on them to get them to join, and they actually joined. It was easy for them, but it made a lot of sense because, of course, they were, the Foot Clan consisted of a lot of lost souls. They were just there without no father figure or mother in their life, so they had no parental figures, honestly, to guide them anywhere. And I believe what was who was Shredder's underling's name in that movie? I believe it was Tatsu, and he took them under their wing, and he just taught them the ways of the ninja, and they were just became a whole clique, and that, and also we got to see Casey Jones, which was that was another another bonus. We didn't think we were gonna see Casey Jones in this movie. It was just I thought it was just gonna be a movie just about the turtles solely, and that was it, But we got a bonus with Casey Jones in the movie, played by Elias Koteas, if I pronounce his last name right. I'm not too sure, but I'm always at that with these actors. A lot of them I just really just I'm not really up on TV like that like I used to be. So it's my pronunciation of these actors and their names, and so it's definitely going to be off quite a bit. Just giving you guys a heads up. Don't shoot me for it. Don't shoot me off for it. It is what it is. But it was pretty cool, and it ended up we get to see him as Raph ends up leaving the movie theater. He was watching, I think, Critters, which was crazy. But I'm sure there was some sort of a message behind that. I'm not too sure what it was, but I am gonna take a look into some. I am gonna do some more info searches on that, because I'm pretty sure there was kind of a message behind that. I'm not too sure if it was Critters. I believe it was Critters. Are the Critters or Tremors? No, it was Critters. It was Critters. I'm bugging. So, as Raph walks into Central Park, he decides to cut through the park, and then all of a sudden he's about to get mugged again, and then of course he handles business. But then out of nowhere, who steps up is Casey Jones, and Casey Jones is holding it down. And for some reason, I don't know how Casey Jones manages, but he manages to hold his ground against Raphael, who is an actual trained ninja, by the way. The man has actually just right. He's just, mind you, Casey Jones is just a street brawler with a hockey stick. That's just all it is. He's a street brawler with a hockey stick. So I don't understand how exactly he managed to get the upper hand on Raphael in that scene, but he did. And which again sets Raph off all over the place. He's pissed as hell, and he's just tight. The man is just tight. So finally, as the movie progresses, I believe April ends up meeting the turtles, and of course she's surprised by what she sees, and at this point she's freaked out. She gets but after she warms up to them, she likes what she becomes cool. She becomes friends with them. Initially she freaks out over seeing Splinter the first time, but then again, of course, who wouldn't, and she ends up taking the boys in because, of course, the turtles' lair was actually found out by the Foot Clan. So after a while, she takes them into her apartment. They're staying with her for a while, and they find out where her location is at as well. And as Raph is up on the roof one day, he's blowing off some steam yet again after getting into an argument with Leonardo, because him and Leonardo were constantly going at it in the movie. They lose their, he gets caught out there. And mind you, Splinter has been kidnapped. As the lair was discovered by the Foot Clan. The Foot Clan managed to kidnap Splinter, and that was at that point that the turtles actually started staying with April in her apartment. So, once that happens, he gets into an argument with Leo, and he's, like I said before, he's on the roof of her building blowing off some steam, and he's found out again by the Foot Clan. And this is where the most kick-ass part of the movie comes in, because that's where to me, that's the best fight out of the entire movie is the fight in April's apartment. And once that happens, first it's Raphael holding it down, like he's being attacked at all angles by the Foot Clan, and he's actually holding his own for quite a bit. But nobody knows what's going on downstairs. And which is a little crazy, but like I said, this just and there's a skylight, mind you, in April's apartment. So I don't know how they're not hearing any of this stuff in the apartment while he's getting into a massive, it's a brawl / jumping, because they're just taking him literally. But at that point, it only dawns on them after the fact that Raph gets thrown through that skylight and he lands onto the floor in the middle of April O'Neil's apartment, and that's where the best scene of the movie occurs to me in my eyes, because the fight is unbelievable. It's you see the choreography. It's excellent kung fu at its finest, bro. I mean, in all honesty, it really is one of the most intense fight scenes in history to me, and that's just the truth, you know. Um, the way it was done in sync and how everything happened, and then it was just one surprise after the next, and then Casey shows up out of nowhere, and then it becomes a super ball. It's like it almost looks like it's almost like it's almost like watching a gang fight happen, but a well choreographed gang fight at that. And it's awesome. It's mind blowing. That was one of the best parts I've ever seen in my life. And then Mikey and one of the Foot Clan members, they end up having like a nunchuck off, because one is just, you know, one of the Foot Clan is that's like showing his skills, and Mikey's just over there just like, you know, like, oh, a fellow chucker, eh? And then he starts getting down. And then finally, when it comes down to it, the one who has the checkmate on that show off obviously is Mikey, when he's you know, brushing his fingernails, and he's still holding the chuck in the other hand. So it made for great entertainment. It was an awesome scene. Obviously, April's apartment goes to hell. It goes straight up. It literally turns to shit. You know, it literally gets lit on fire and burns down and everything. And they end up having to locate. They have to relocate somewhere in the woods, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if it was in New Jersey or upstate. God knows. But they ended up having to lay low in the woods, and you know, the guys are still mourning over the fact that they lost Splinter. They don't know if he's dead or not. You know, for all they know, he's just missing. And in the meantime, like Raph is in the middle of he's in a coma. Apparently, he literally got, you know, the fight was too much for him because he was holding it on his own, and you know, that's the point where it gets a little, you know, that's where you see the sentiment come in, because you see Leonardo actually lamenting a lot of the stuff that he said to Raphael at that scene, at that moment. He's trying to he wants to reconnect with his brother again, because you know, they were you know, the way things turned out for him didn't go too well, and they felt like it was definitely an emotional scene when they had Raph in the bathtub throughout that whole time. And Leo stayed by his side throughout the, you know, he was his brother, and he was going to take care of him, and he wasn't turning his back on him. So that was a really heavy scene for me. It was something really emotional to see for me as a child, you know, and particularly anybody who didn't get moved by that, you probably made out of stone, but you know, that's not for me to judge. But definitely an impactful scene in the movie. And then finally, Casey and April end up having a love interest that blossoms somewhat in the movie, and you know, they cut up vegetables together with Leo's sword. And then finally, one of the closeout scene of that is when the guys end up having this little seance outside, and they end up channeling Splinter's spirit, and they find out that he's alive, which was also a great scene, and beautifully done with the animatronics of the turtles, honestly, because it's for them to actually have tears flowing from these guys, you know, from the eyes of from the eyes of these masks. Well, they're not masks, but you know, it was it was unbelievable. It definitely was a mind blowing scene, and hit the heart. So of course they go back to New York City to get Splinter, and Splinter is actually befriending the son of the news station manager, April O'Neil's boss, who's also a member of the Foot Clan, or he's trying to become a member of the Foot Clan. He's like an underling, or you know, a novice, I guess you could say. And he's just a petty thief, basically. He just makes his money going by, stealing here and there, taking people's TVs and money. He actually pickpocketed April O'Neil. He went through her purse at one scene. So that was pretty intense to show exactly where this drive was coming from, because apparently it was supposedly the focus of that was the parental neglect that he had at home with his dad. And he ends up befriending Splinter while Splinter is captured in Shredder's lair. And Shredder was also great. Shredder was a badass. Shredder was an absolute badass. Whoever voiced the character in the movie did a fantastic job. The man was like, they Darth Vader the hell out of that. It was awesome. It was really awesome. I loved it. It was such a great. He was such a great character in the movie that it ruled. You know what I'm saying? And of course, once the turtles return back to the city, they end up for the final showdown, the epic final showdown, and between them and Shredder. And that's the only gripe I really have with the movie, is the final fight between them and Shredder was a little too much for my taste. Like, first of all, they got the crap kicked out of them. They did. They got the living shit kicked out of them by Shredder, which isn't, it was expected. But then they had Splinter, who was supposed to be, who was obviously the main villain of the movie, who obviously was not the main villain. Excuse me. He was the bad. He was Shredder's arch nemesis, obviously. And the way Splinter actually dealt with Shredder was just the most weirdest. It was the weirdest way of actually ending it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it made, it really didn't. To me, that was my only gripe about that, was just, how is it that these guys were just throwing down all four of them against Shredder, and Shredder's beating the living hell out of all of them, and yet this short, you know, this short puppet of a rat out of nowhere, just, he does this. I don't know what kind of move that is or what it was that he did, but he did like this thing with the nunchucks that he wrapped it around Shredder's metal, Shredder's bow staff, which turned out to be a pretty sharp, which looked like a long, which was pointed at the end too, so it was a pretty, so it was meant for some stabbing. And he ends up wrapping the nunchuck around it, and for somehow, some reason, some way, somewhere, he conjured the strength of the gods and managed to lift this man, and then flip him over the roof of the building into the back of a garbage truck disposal. And that wasn't, to me I was like, what the hell was that? I was like, I couldn't understand that move for the life of me. That made no sense. I was like, well, if they at least were going to do something like that, could they have made it a little bit more believable? It was like, I think, it almost seemed like at the end of the movie, that scene, it was just like the producer and directors were just so tired of all the stuff that they had to do. They were just like, all right, man, let's just wrap it up and just, make up some crap for him to do along the way and just toss him off the roof into the garbage compactor anyways, because there's going to be a sequel regardless. And they knew it was going to be a sequel anyways. But that was my only gripe about the movie. It was the ending, was the final fight scene between Shredder and Splinter. Didn't make any sense, honestly, and they could have done. I think they could have at least they could have at least elaborated exactly what made that the end result for the for Splinter and Shredder. But nevertheless, of course, it was a great. It was still a great movie. I still hold it dear to my chest, and it did spawn a sequel, The Secret of the Ooze, which followed by immediately the next year. It dumbed down a lot though, because apparently a lot of parents at that time were concerned about the violence in the movie, of the first movie. They didn't like it too much, which was actually nothing compared to what's going on now today, honestly. But you'd be surprised, man. People were pretty, the amount of bitching that went behind this movie's violence factor, considering the kids that were being taught, brought into the movies, was something else. But it was still Secret of the Ooze is still somewhat of a guilty pleasure for me. Even though it was a bit stupid, and the pointless cameo of Vanilla Ice that was in there. I don't want to get into it too much because I think I might want to do a tribute episode, or I just might talk about it right now. Yeah, that was just it was a pretty cool, but out of nowhere, like, I didn't appreciate a few things I didn't appreciate about part two was the automatic change of April O'Neil, the actress. Didn't really just made no sense to me. It just was like, what the hell happened? And then they just it didn't really do anything for me. Then to top it all off, a lot of the stuff that they were using with the they had the turtles. Oh, excuse me. They had the turtles using food for weapons instead a lot of the time, and it shows at the very beginning of the movie. And like, they're using like sausage links and stuff like that to combat some of the some criminals. That was ridiculous. But and then of course you have the rip off Bebop and Rocksteady, Toke on Razor, which which was pretty useless at that point. But I don't understand why they didn't go with Bebop and Rocksteady in the first place. But it's whatever. And but it's still a guilty pleasure of mine. I still enjoy it. Um, I do get a chance, but whenever I get a chance to see it, I get a I definitely sit back and I catch it. But the first film will always be a timeless classic for me. Even though a lot of the critics at that time hated it, of course, but compared to the recent installments that came out over the last 3 years with Megan Fox, that was complete garbage, honestly speaking. And let me tell you something, those movies really, if there's anything that those movies ever taught me, it just taught me. I didn't even see the second one. I just hated the first one. I thought, Megan Fox sucks as an actress. She sucks as an actress. She couldn't even play April O'Neil right, which made no sense. It's like, damn, man, if you can't play a comic book based character like that, then you are terrible. You are really terrible. I don't care how pretty the face is, bro. She sucks. She is a terrible actress. And at this point, I don't see how she can be getting any work in Hollywood in the future outside of the fact that she's a hot chick. You know, um, I hope to God that that they don't bother considering her for the Poison Ivy role if in the Gotham City Sirens. Please, Warner Brothers, please. There's a lot more talent out there that they can scope out for that can play the role. Do not go with this person because she blows all of she just blows as an actress. That's my personal opinion. I'm not saying she's a bad person. She might be a little. I've seen a few interviews of her. She's a little loopy, if you ever ask me. She might be a little nuts. A bit on the. Damn, I hate saying this because I liked her too in Blade. I love her in Blade Runner, but Sean Young crazy. She's not really. You know, Not really someone I would have a regular conversation with, honestly speaking, because she's just nuts. But as far as her acting skills are concerned, there are none. There are no. She has no skills as far as acting is concerned to me. So those two installments of the Ninja Turtles franchise that came out recently, those were a complete slap in the face, and it really they weren't good for me. But then again, it's Michael Bay, so what the hell can you expect? The man is a complete hack in every way, shape, or form. But yeah, man, that what a great movie that was. The Ninja Turtles, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1990 film, will always be a classic. And you know, even though Part Two had its swing and misses, I still cherish it as well. I hated Part Three. I didn't even bother with Part Three. Part Three was just as terrible too. You know, time traveling was just ridiculous. I don't think it was. They could have gone with every other storyline, but they didn't. They decided to go with time travel. They didn't even bother touching on Krang or Dimension X. They just went with time traveling nonsense. I never saw it. I saw a review of it on one of the YouTube channels that I liked. Actually, I believe it was the Angry Video Game Nerd. He did a great review on that one, and it was thank God I didn't even waste my time on. I thank God I didn't even waste money when I was a child to see it. But if there's anything you wanted to check out about the Ninja Turtles, that's an actual faithful, honorable movie. I would say the first film that came out, and of course, when you have actors like I also wanted to touch on Donatello, who was a great actor, who was portrayed very well by Corey Feldman. He was big at the time. Also, the man was with him between him and Corey Haim. They were pretty famous. They were pretty big celebrities at that time. So the fact that he voiced Donatello was pretty badass. But definitely give that movie a check it out if you haven't seen it. And once again, thank you guys for riding out with me. I'm gonna wrap this up right about now. If you have any questions or comments, you already know where the comment section is at. Or any suggestions for any future episodes, anything you wanted to see me touch upon, let me know. Definitely I'll be reviewing all of the content. And once again, thank you guys for everything and for all the love and support that you've given me. Have a good one, and I'll see you next time. Take care.